C103.
And we're off to the Health Hub Times Square in Ballincollig, where Anneliese joins me this afternoon. Good afternoon, Anneliese.
Good afternoon, Patricia.
And you're very welcome. Now, a kind of a one that is common enough at this time of the year, but I think others might identify with this. This is in from Liz, who has noticed in recent years that she seems to be picking up a lot of viruses during the winter months, and she's wondering, is it just a sign that she's a bit run down? She does take a daily vitamin C and a zinc tablet, but she's wondering, is there anything else? Is there other vitamins she should be taking to try and boost her up as we go into the winter months?
So I suppose it depends how often she is picking up viruses, Patricia. I do think that once you get a very bad virus that affects your respiratory system, it can actually damage and weaken your chest so that you could be more prone to catching viruses. So that's a possibility. Definitely taking a vitamin C and zinc is great, but vitamin D is really, really key as well. And actually most of us are probably deficient in vitamin D. It's really good to get your vitamin D levels checked when you have a blood test with your doctor. It's actually quite good to, if you normally take a vitamin D during the winter, it's quite good to have it checked when you're on the vitamin D, because that way you'll know that what you're taking is either enough or too much or whatever, but it'll give you an idea of whether you need to up it or decrease it. So that could be another thing to add. And I don't know what kind of viruses this listener is having, but again, prevention really is the key here. So it may be that you need a little bit of extra help for your respiratory system. I love the Dr. Dealish Clare. She does a congestion blend, which is very good if you've got that sinus or postnasal drip going on without infection. That kind of helps to clear up the mucus. And I think if you are producing a lot of mucus, you are far more likely to get an infection. And then my go-to, anytime I feel the slightest sniffle coming on, is the Dr. Dealish Clare Mucotone, because there is echinacea in that, so that will boost the immune system. And some people take echinacea all winter, Patricia. What echinacea does is it ramps up your white blood cells, which are your kind of first line of defence. So some people do take it preventatively. They take it every single day, and you can do that. Personally, I'm a kind of a fan of taking stuff as and when you need it. But if I was getting a virus every 2 months, I probably would end up taking something preventatively every day, because that's a lot. The other thing, I suppose, is the gut. You know, if people get a lot of antibiotics, it does damage the good bacteria in the gut, and they do play a huge role in the immune system. So taking a good probiotic, if you've been on antibiotics, is really, really important to restore those. And then make sure that you're including fermented foods in your diet as much as you possibly can. Now, the yogurts, Patricia, that we buy in supermarkets, I've found them at the back of the fridge 3 months later, and they're still edible. So I don't think we're getting the good bacteria in those. So try and get, like, you know, more kind of, I suppose, the fermented foods, like you can buy kombucha in the health shop. You can make your own yogurt and kefir very, very easily. Also things like sauerkraut are very good, or pickles. So try and include those in your diet every day. And these things shouldn't be in your fridge without going off. If they don't go off after a couple of weeks, there's nothing left in it. There's no bacteria in them at all.
Okay, all right. And another listener is talking about and actually there's a lot of us in the building here can't get rid of a cough. I had a very bad flu type about 3 weeks ago. All the other symptoms are gone, but I still have a hacking cough.
Okay, so if it's a dry cough without mucus, that often does happen, I think, Patricia, because, first, it could be that you haven't fully gotten rid of the virus, but it might also be just that you've all of that kind of delicate tissue in the respiratory system is dry, irritated, inflamed after being so sick. So it's very sensitive to breathing in cold air, warm air, dust, temperature change or dust. So I think the best for that are things like licorice, mullein, marshmallow. They're great for kind of helping nourish those mucous membranes. So I think the Irish Botanica throat coat, that has lovely marshmallow in there. And the Dr. Clare Mucotone is a great one as well. That's got Icelandic moss, which is brilliant for soothing a kind of an irritated chest. And it's also echinacea, just in case you're not fully rid of the virus. And then one of my favourites that I go back to myself a lot is the olive leaf extract. Now, it's been rebranded and they're selling it for cardio health, but actually olive leaf extract is a wonderful one for kind of getting yourself over that last bit of the virus. I always found if I couldn't get that extra 20% at the end better, it was the olive leaf that gave me energy and got me over the line. So you could try that if you're still not shifting stuff.
Okay, could you ask Anneliese, please, what does it mean when your thyroid blood is elevated, and is there anything I can do about it?
So I don't know what is elevated in the results. So there's something called thyroid stimulating hormone. If that is elevated, that means that your body is trying to stimulate your thyroid gland and has to produce more hormone in order to do it. That's a sign that your thyroid is not producing enough thyroid hormone. So it's kind of maybe a low thyroid function. That can be for a number of various different reasons. Some people produce antibodies that actually damage the thyroid. It's an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So if there's a family history of thyroid, low thyroid function, maybe that's your genetic destiny. And just, I suppose, a lot of people now, again, this wouldn't be a scientific paper, but there's a lot of people who would find that gluten is a kind of a factor in stimulating autoimmune diseases, and I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that people with thyroid would say that they can't tolerate gluten. So maybe look at that in your diet. The other thing then could be that maybe your thyroid isn't getting what it needs in order to function, like iodine, tyrosine, selenium, things like that. So you could go in and try a supplement from the health shop that would have all of the stuff that the thyroid would need to make the thyroid hormones successfully. And if that doesn't work, it's most likely a genetic issue, and probably at some stage you might need to take L-Troxin. So I think that's probably what it is, Patricia. You can also have a hyperthyroid situation, but that would be if there was the T3 and T4 elevated, and I think this lady is probably talking about the TSH.
Okay, Marie wants to know, what would Anneliese recommend to increase sodium levels? One of my blood pressure tablets has recently been changed.
Okay, well now that is an interesting one, Patricia, because if your blood pressure tablet has been changed and you don't have enough sodium, that means your blood pressure tablet is making your kidneys get rid of too much sodium. So I would think that you need to actually get that medication sorted out. Now, you could take sodium in the form of salt, but most people would say that's kind of, what you're doing there is the medication is causing the problem. Yeah. So you're taking something that can cause high blood pressure to fix the problem, which I would say, should be the natural way to go about it. But sea salt is the best way to take salt in your diet to make sure that you're getting a balance of the electrolytes. Because if you buy table salt, it literally is pure sodium chloride, and that does elevate the blood pressure. Whereas the sea salt has got calcium and magnesium and other potassium salts in there, so it's much less likely to elevate your blood pressure. And you could just put a pinch into a glass of water and drink that 3 times a day. That should help with electrolyte balance. And make sure that you're putting a bit of salt in when you're cooking your food, and you could also salt your food. But be very careful because that could actually send your blood pressure too high. So I think the issue here is with the kidney and the medication, and I think you need to go back to the doctor.
Check out the medication. A North Cork listener, a question for Anneliese, please. I have a persistent pain situated below my left ear. Now, I'm currently on prescription medication for nerve pain. Is there any natural supplement or remedy that Anneliese could suggest? I currently am taking B complex.
So that's, again, a difficult one now, Patricia, because if it's nerve pain, would that be post-shingles nerve pain? Would it be nerve pain from ear infection? Would it be... So really, you kind of deal with what's causing the problem, and then hopefully things should heal up naturally. So I think I would say if it's after a virus, making sure that you have rid your body of the antivirus. And actually, I just read a paper recently as well, Patricia, with shingles virus that has been implicated with Alzheimer's. So it can actually remain in your body for a long time afterwards. So take natural antivirals like things like elderberry extract, echinacea is a very good natural antiviral. The olive leaf extract, fantastic antiviral. There's something called Virese, which is monolaurin. That's another fantastic antiviral. So take that to make sure your body is dealing with the virus properly. And then for nerve pain, it's a very difficult one because hypericum would be the typical go-to, which is a homeopathic remedy. It's spelled hyper, Hyper, ICIUM, hypericum. Unfortunately, it's disappeared off most health shops' shelves at the moment, so it might be difficult to get that. You could try also lion's mane. We had a lovely herbalist in last week who was talking about lion's mane, that she used it for one of her clients who developed tinnitus after a virus, and she put her on a very high dose of 8 capsules a day, which is extremely high, and it made a big difference with her tinnitus. So lion's mane is very good for nerve regeneration, but you do need to take it in very high amounts. So if you can't get your hands on the hypericum, try lion's mane, and if it says the dose on the back is 1 capsule a day, up it by 8. If it says it's 2 capsules a day, up it by 4 times to have 8 a day.
Okay, give that a try. Now, John O'Malley is an interesting one. He describes himself as somebody who always gets a good night's sleep. He doesn't have a problem with sleeping, but he's noticed of late that he'll get a wave of tiredness during the day, and which forces him then to have a 20-minute kind of a power nap, and then he's fine again for the rest of the day. He's wondering why this would suddenly come on.
I don't know, really, Patricia. I suppose some people get a huge slump after eating. I think that could be a thing to do with the way people manage blood sugars and insulin.
Yeah.
Some people really feel exhausted after eating certain foods. One question I would ask about people if I suspect there's a gluten intolerance would be, how do you feel after eating bread or pasta? Would you get a wave of tiredness? So that can happen for some people that have a gluten intolerance. Other reasons, I don't know. I mean, it depends. Lots of people who work in stuffy rooms and sitting at a computer for a long period of time would need, more oxygen, I suppose, a little bit of fresh air. So that could be another reason. I mean, it is good to get up from your computer, they say, every 20 minutes to give your eyes a break. And I do think it's good to get a bit of fresh air at the same time. So it could be any of those reasons. It's unlikely to be a deficiency, because if it was, you'd feel tired all of the time. So I'd maybe see when it's happening, see can you link it to gluten, and if not, if it's linked to after eating, in which case you might maybe do with some blood sugar balance support.
Okay, listen, we'll leave it there. Thank you for that, Anneliese. Have a lovely
Thanks,
week.
Patricia.
We won't be with you next week because it's bank holiday.
Yes. Happy
already.
bank holiday.
Yeah, happy Halloween to you too. Thanks for that, Anneliese.
Thanks,
and look after yourself. We'll talk to Anneliese again in 2 weeks' time, and of course this afternoon. All of the items that we discussed with Anneliese on her slot today, she'll put it up on her own website, which is thehealthhubstore.com, and she'll do that at mid-afternoon, as indeed John Paul will put up my chat with Anneliese today as a separate podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from, or at C103.